Well, good afternoon, everybody. It has been a while since I've been able to make a program here. We are on program 48, and the American election in the year 220, phase one, let's say, is at least concluded. And, those of you who may listen to this in future days, you will know the outcome of the kind of dishonesty which has pervaded the approach on the part of the present president. But anyway, here it is about 11 or 12 days later, and we are dealing with Occult Meditation, program 48, page 236. And the Tibetan says, here as a segue, as time progresses, yes, again, I prophesy, occult students will be given certain facts, anent the dominating rays, which will enable them to avail themselves of the opportunity which any particular ray affords. There may be a little bit more here that we can use as a segue. All the things he does, the student of meditation ponders on those forces or qualities. He seeks to extract their essence and to comprehend their spiritual significance. He broods on his own lack of response. He realizes the deficiencies in his vehicle as a medium for those forces. He studies the rate of his rhythmic vibration, and he strenuously endeavors to bend every opportunity to meet the need. He concentrates on the virtue, and if he is so situated that he is aware of the incoming ray or of the ray in dominance at that time, he avails himself of the hour of opportunity and cooperates with the force extant. All this he does through the ordered forms of the true and occult meditation. So we can see what a careful scrutiny the student of occultism gives to his meditative life and to the form, the condition of the form, which will, to a great extent, determine how successful he or she is in bringing through the subtle energies which must make their manifestation upon the physical plane. Now we proceed the effect of meditation on the environment. As regards our third point, the effect of all the above on the environment, it will be obvious at once to the careful student, may we be so, that the effect upon the environment will be noticeable, especially as more and more of the human race come under the conscious control of their higher self and in line with the law. The idea that one meditator, one individual thinking truth can affect the entire environment widely, relatively widely. So certain things will then be possible. Direct contact with the deva or angel evolution will come about, though it is impossible now through instability of vibration. This we have to remember. He spends some time in letters in a treatise on white magic, telling us that the vibration in the West is too unstable for true occultism to take root. But at the same time, he tells us that occultism is moving to the West, and before long it will be the major place where occultism is practiced widely, understandingly, with a scientific approach characteristic of the West. So anyway, how many of us are under the control of our higher self and functioning in line with the law? This is something we must evaluate in our own case. So certain things will then be possible. Many very highly developed souls will come in who are at present hindered by the low rate of vibration and consequent heaviness of color, the veils, right, that we've been studying. They are hindered by the consequent heaviness of color of the majority of the human race. All right. So this will have an effect of lifting the entirety. And maybe, during the past hundreds of years since this book was written, a number of advanced souls have come through. It would be my understanding that this was at least partially the case. I saw how music changed, popular music, from the 1950s to the 1960s. It was a remarkable change. Since I'm, somewhat sensitive to music, perhaps as an art, and it had to be the result of those people who could produce that kind of music, quite different from the music of the 50s and the 40s and so forth. Much deeper, much more beautiful, with historical roots in beautiful music. So there's just, maybe one example, certainly the consciousness revolution, which occurred in the 60s and 70s. This too was the result, I think, of the incoming of some very highly developed souls. And I think he's talking about those who are even more highly developed than those who came in at that time. Souls that will enter during the Aquarian age. There are in the heaven world and on the causal level, that's the third heaven, okay, some great and to you incomprehensible units of the fourth creative hierarchy awaiting opportunity of expression, just as some of you awaited a period in the Atlantean race before taking incarnation on this planet. So here he tells his students that they are, some of them, moonchain humanity. Yeah, especially. Maybe not all of you, but some of you. The actual numbers and who came from where, these are known by him, but probably not by us. We may have certain intimations that we arose in an individualized form on the moon chain, or even in the previous solar system, but DK in a public book of this nature, and probably even in his letters, is not confirming or denying that possibility. Okay. When the rate of the vibration of a larger percentage of the rays has reached a certain measure, and when the color aspect of the coordinated auras of the group is of a certain tone, and notice here how he mixes color and music, they will return and bring to the earth much of the value past your realization. And this tells us they have already been here. But under the law of economy, the supervising solar angel will not waste incarnations in environments that will not further the development of the individual or of the environment. However, there are situations where karma must be paid, and then it will seem that an individual who has much more than his or her environment is inserted in that environment, either to pay the karma or to sacrificially lift the environment, even though the circumstances will not be necessarily propitious for the growth of that unit. So they will return. And already we have already seen the return of some quite highly developed souls. And he's basically putting things in perspective. He writes in the 1920s for people who are just being exposed to his teaching on occult meditation. And they must have a certain humility. We all must, because there's a whole Jacob's ladder of development, and we have to understand how it works, and maybe more or less our place upon that ladder. So certain things will be possible. And here is one of them, that direct contact, and many highly developed souls will come in. Now let's see what else will happen when the color and tone are correct, and when the heavy veiling of color, the veil, has refined a great deal from what it is now. Then we will have quite a different situation. And we have to be patient, of course. And let's see here. Okay. Another interesting point upon which we have not time to dwell is that the rhythmic effect on even the two kingdoms beneath the human will be objectively demonstrable, the animal kingdom and the vegetable kingdom. It is no idle boast of the prophet of Israel when he said, "The leopard shall lie down with the lamb." Of course, sometimes it said the lion. Either one would normally be quite lethal to the lamb. Or that the desert shall blossom like a rose. Master Moria has told us that deserts, where they are found, are offenses. They betray, they reveal wrongdoing on the part of human beings. But here will be a return, perhaps to something more beautiful, or even something in advance of anything that has ever been. Then that will be quite different. It will be brought about by the, let's see here, it will be brought about by the domination of certain vibrations and the bringing in of certain colors, veiling certain virtues or influences. Now, we've learned that while color is a veil, it is also a means by which higher vibrations can make some impact upon lower spheres. That is, its use, and this is what color healing is all about. Okay. There's a lot of it going on, and although maybe it hasn't been tested the way rigorous fifth-ray types would want it to be tested, it will. I often wonder about Germany, maybe Austria, with the fourth ray soul and considerable fifth ray. I would say, in Austria, we're told the fifth ray personality is there. It's the home of many wonderful musicians and I suppose artists as well, along the visual line, and so is Germany with its fourth ray soul, and I think fifth ray mind. I think it takes those two rays together to extract the greatest influence out of color. All right, so everything here so far is filled with promise. And whether or not it was anticipated that the second phase of the war would precipitate at the time that this was written, the plan will manifest even if delayed. There has been delay already. the precipitation of the second phase of the war, and the discovery of the destructive potential of atomic energy. This placed into the consideration of the masters an entirely new situation, which was extremely dangerous for the survival of humanity. And so that certainly had to be dealt with. Now we go on, and it tells us in this next letter that today we will take up the subject of the application of color. Of course, this is the thing that so many people are interested in. I imagine that it takes quite a bit of experimentation and quite a bit of exposure to colors of different kinds to verify, to ascertain that they can actually do what the occultists say they can do. If colors are but the veil cast over an influence, and if you can, by use of the intuition, find out which colors thus shroud a virtue, you will have the key to the matter in hand. This is a very important statement. And I'll try to make it, appropriately large. So it really stands out. And, to read it again then. If colors are but the veil cast over an influence, perhaps lest that influence appear too rapidly and disturbingly in its impact upon form, and if you can, by use of the intuition, find out which colors thus shroud a virtue. That is a key thought, isn't it? You will have the key to the matter in hand. I think imagining colors in certain situations would be very useful. Perhaps before large events, before important discussions, before interviews. I imagine that some good could be done, even with the imagination in this case. You will have noted two facts that stand out in these letters. That the subject touched upon is so vast that only its outline has in any way been attempted. Well, again, our patience is called upon. We can follow perhaps the ramifications which the subject possesses and can generate, let's say. It's a huge science, and I imagine that during the Aquarian Age, this and the science of harmony under the fourth ray will be strongly developed. What else stands out in these letters? You have to admit, it's an extraordinary book. With information just as unusual and even more detailed in some ways than found in that book for the public initiation, human and solar. That each sentence written in these letters aims at an exact impartation of a complete thought and is full of matter for consideration. Maybe that's why this, my kind of analysis, or at least commentary, is taking so long. But it could take much longer if we really stayed with these sentences as long as they deserve to be considered. Why have I not dealt with the matter in greater detail? Seems like enough detail for us, doesn't it? And why have I not entered into lengthy explanations and sought to express the sentences into paragraphs? Okay, maybe some of us have had that question. For the sole reason that if the preliminary work has been done in the meditation of the past years by the students, he will find the material of these letters conducive to the development of abstract thought and the widening of the channel that communicates with the intuition. So much is being left to us because of the prompting of the material, but under the assumption that we have done our work in meditation hitherto and are in a condition as regards our apparatus, and especially our mind, to access the abstract mind and the intuition to a degree. So his method is built upon the assumption that we have done our work. I but seek to be suggestive. My aim is but to indicate. What is the motto of China? I indicate the way. Is that it? The usefulness of the teaching I give depends on the intuition of the pupil. Therefore, when I say that color has certain effects when applied, I would warn you that it will be necessary to interpret the above in terms of life, in terms of form, and that intermediary in terms of mind. So he, as usual, he's not giving us everything, but enough. And as Massamoria tells us, to give all is to put on chains. So he's not going to do that. He will indicate, but he will rely upon our cultivated abstract mind and intuition to extract from what he has given the most important teaching, the most important points. Okay, now we're into the application of color. And in meditation, in healing, in constructive work. So naturally, we are interested in how to apply sometimes some very abstract and puzzling to us teaching. All right, color may be used in many ways, and the above 3 ways do not cover the subject. Meditation, for certain access of energy and enhancements in the field of consciousness, in healing, which is basically a restoration to the archetype, and in constructive work, it sounds like white magic. It sounds like creative thought form building, the white magical process. So the three ways do not cover the subject. They would indicate three ways that are of immediate and practical use to the student. So this is the practical approach. We need a ladder, we need bridges, we need modes of access, we need forms by means of which we can access energies which otherwise we wouldn't be able to access. And something so apparently tangible as color is one of these modes of access, as are tones. And I often think that when we can visualize the correct color while sounding the correct tone on a correct word, or maybe sounding a mantram while visualizing the color on the correct tone, holding the mantram on the correct tone, then we will be quite effective. I think this was part of the ancient science which was in the possession of the initiates of former times, in the possession of those who could successfully deal with the subtle aspects of nature. It's as if we have to relearn all this after much privation of the methods. Color may be employed in contacting other evolutions, subhuman and superhuman, just as the White Lodge or Black Lodge can do so. I suppose if there are beings of a certain hue and we use that hue, we can come en rapport with them. That's assuming we can reproduce that hue. It can be used in definite work of destruction or of shattering. And you can begin to see, I saw under the Rife microscope, or quite an early incarnation of that microscope, the shattering of cancerous cells through the application of certain vibrations. And I'm sure that if color were applied, it would assist. This is all part of the vibrational medicine coming in, and it's not hard to imagine the methods by which it operates. Dissonance can destroy. And when a dissonant vibration is confronted with a powerful harmonic vibration, a vibration which is strengthened archetypally, then the destruction of the dissonance can occur. So in the definite work of destruction or shattering, it may be used in connection with other methods such as music and movement. And this is kind of what we're talking about here, and this reminds us of, well, now I forget what it's called, but the methods of, okay, Steiner. So with his strong fourth and fifth rays, in countries that have the strong fourth and fifth rays, Rudolf Steiner. And eurythmy. Not quite sure how to spell it, but U-R-H-Y. Eurythmy. Well, I'll leave it at that in terms of movement. And, well, let's say music on certain tones and certain pieces that may have been composed without such esoteric objectives in mind, but which are useful because of the way they were composed, the keys in which they were composed, the nature of the composer, and his or her particular sensitivity, eurythmy in terms of movement, and various compositions in terms of music. Or in connection with stated mantrams, thereby bringing about certain results. Well, it's pretty much like what I've said here. You can combine color with many modes. So color can be combined effectively with many modes, such as, music, movement, mantrams, forms, etc. But with all these, we need not, in this series of letters, concern ourselves. The growth of the individual and his increased capacity to be of service are all brought about by the wise use of occult meditation. And I think he has to repeat that point. Certainly, after reading a book like this, we will have a much deeper respect for what meditation deeply is, rather than some of the superficial judgments that we have made over a period of years, and which are the judgments of the majority of people who don't think deeply into the matter. So all of this has been a bit of an introduction. And now we come to a section where we're thinking about the use of color in meditation. We certainly have dealt with the use of form in meditation already. And maybe it's a little more difficult to speak of the use of music in meditation and certain tones without, reproducing them. But I think all of these have to be combined. So the use of color in meditation and yeah, okay. So here, page 238, all colors emanate from one source or one primary color. In this solar system, the cosmic ray of indigo, veiling cosmic love or wisdom, or love wisdom, and then split into three major colors and thence into four minor, making the seven colors of the spectrum. I would say, of which a lower indigo is one, because indigo is still part of the spectrum, but here we talk about a cosmic ray. And now, well, it may come from beyond the solar system altogether, but maybe even emanating from our solar logos, it can be considered cosmic, because solar logos is, in a way, a cosmic being. So all colors emanate from one source or primary color, and maybe it's not accidental that we call it primary. When you mix three primaries together in light, you do get the color white, or at least if you want to call it a color. One primary color in this solar system, the cosmic ray of indigo, veiling cosmic love or wisdom, and then split into three major colors, perhaps of which indigo is one, and thence into four minor, because our spectrum is a seven-colored spectrum. You kind of wonder whether in the next solar system, whose number will be 9, just as the number for this solar system is 7, there will be a 9-fold spectrum. And you wonder about the previous solar system, whether there was a 5-fold spectrum. But that all remains to be seen. You will expect to see the same effect in the life of the individual, for always the macrocosm affects the microcosm, which reflects it. His primary color will be his monadic ray, manifesting next in the 3 colors of the triad and in the 4 colors of the quaternary. Apparently, what we call the soul is really the encased triad in a way. So this is an important statement about the colors that we could access or wear, or in some way, or remind ourselves of. His primary color will be his monadic ray, whichever it happens to be, and you kind of wonder, are we dealing here with the color of the liberated monad, the volatile essence liberated from the monadic vehicle and found upon the logoic plane? But we're speaking now in generalities. His primary color will be his monadic ray, and the first monadic ray that we encounter is that found upon the monadic plane. But the colors for 4, 5, 6, and 7 cannot be found upon the logoic plane. There, the liberated monad will have only the primary colors, in light, I assume. So 3 colors of the triad, Atma, Buddhi, Manas, and maybe sort of, well, Atma is in a way both red and green. Those are complements. We would find Buddhi being blue and yellow, I suspect. Manas, orange, yellow, maybe some shade of blue. This still all has to be worked out, but one day the color formula and the tonal formula of anybody's energy configuration will be a known fact, not only to the master, but to the advancing disciple initiate. So these colors on the path of return are resolved into the 3 and thence again into the 1. I think, to me, this is a useful simplification, and there are some details along the way, such as, the kind of 9-fold choice of rays in the triad. You have 9 in one column and 9 in another column, page 177 of A Treatise on Cosmic Fire. So some mixing of colors may be, possible here. But this is, now in Esoteric Psychology, Volume 1, he does give the primary colors of the monadic ray, but while they are red, blue, yes, red and blue, instead of green, you have yellow for the 3rd ray monad. So he seems to be working in pigment somehow. And then in pigment, green is a derivative color, mixing the yellow and the blue. So, the philosophical implications of this are, to be worked out, and they are important. Green is primary when it comes to light, and yellow is not. And generally speaking, I think the pigment has a more material implication than the rays of light, which have a more elevated and spiritual implication. So, some of us, maybe we're on the 2nd ray, we study Master DK assiduously, and we can say, well, our soul ray is probably the indigo ray. And what of our monadic ray? It can be any one of the 7 on the monadic plane. And do we sense that color coming in, or is it simply do we have in that color a reinforcement of the soul ray, because that monadic color is the same as the soul ray? But then elevating the volatile essence through its escape to the logoic plane before it's ready to travel on the way of high revolution, we have only three choices. And do they come in via light or via pigment? I mean, I would think they would come in via light. We have the Father in red, we have the Son in indigo, and the Holy Spirit, will it be the green color? I think more likely the green color than the yellow. So this whole dichotomy between pigment and light has to be worked out, and its areas of the area of application of either one of them has to be ascertained. The path of manifestation, of differentiation, is the path of acquisition. It is the homogeneous becoming the many, or the heterogeneous. It is the path of involution. It is the breaking up of the one basic color into many component parts, the breaking up of the one basic sound into the many other sounds. It is basically, and I think we can recognize this as general, the one becoming the many. This is the form side, the expression of that which veils the life. On the life side, it is the development from the one basic quality of the many inherent virtues. Development from the one basic quality of the many inherent virtues, and these many virtues combine and are restored to the one basic quality which generated them. It is the latent possibility of divinity demonstrating on as the many attributes of the divine. It is the one life manifesting its many qualities through diversity of form. Many perspectives here, right? It is the self with the inherent capabilities of the all self, utilizing forms for the demonstration of its all-including perfection. So this is the life side. This is the form side. So I'm going to, maybe make this the green. So, all right, on the life side, it is the development from the one basic quality of the many inherent virtues, from the perspective of the being or life energy, this path of manifestation can be seen as that. Now, we're not apparently yet dealing with the path of reabsorption. So this is from the perspective of that which sent the many forth. And I think I'll, just take it up here to the point of the intelligence. It is the latent possibility of divinity demonstrating as the many attributes of the divine. It is the one life manifesting its many qualities through diversity of form. This is when that one life has been able to transform itself into the many, while still remaining itself, of course. It is the self, a kind of, any kind of emanated projection with the inherent capabilities of the all-self, not in the same scale, of course, utilizing forms for the demonstration of its all-including perfections. Now, the middle emphasis is on intelligence. On the intelligence side, it is the method whereby the life utilizes the form and develops it through comprehension, analysis, and intellect. It is the relation between life and form, the self and the not self, between spirit and matter, manifesting as modes of expression, whereby the indwelling divinity imposes its characteristics upon the material provided for his using. The God within expresses all his latent virtues through forms by the use or activity of the intelligence. The life shows color, and the form perfects these colors, as the intelligence aspect, which forms the energizing link, becomes more evolved and comprehension is developed. So basically, all of this is about the path of outgoing and the final development of that path of outgoing in manifestation. It is not yet the path of return, as I do see. I think I said something earlier about the path of return, maybe a little bit prematurely. But now, the path of return. On the path of return, renunciation is the rule in contradistinction to the earlier method. So let's just say on the path of outgoing, the method is acquisition. On the path of return, the method is renunciation, or, detachment, or letting go, or separating oneself from, or absorbing quality, lesser quality into higher quality. On the path of return, renunciation is the rule in contradistinction to the earlier method. The indwelling life renounces the forms hitherto regarded, and necessarily so, as essential. So basically, he's telling us, how to use form, life, intelligence, both on the path of outgoing and the path of return. So that will require, I think, some rereading. The formal perspective is given. The path of, he calls it the path of manifestation or differentiation. Oh, okay, and I am also calling it also the path of outgoing or involution. It is the homogeneous becoming the many and the heterogeneous. It is the breaking up of the one basic color into many component parts. This is the form side of the expression of that which veils the life. And now the life side, what manifestation means to the being that sent forth the manifestation. And then here, when we come to intelligence, it's a method whereby the life utilizes the form. So I'm going to just make the word method stand out. And this is in the path of manifestation. Form, life, and intelligence. Remember, too, that the second ray, interestingly, is the form builder. The third ray seems to be the form adapter. And the life is the animating principle which seeks to express through the form. This reminds also of the triplicity, life, quality, appearance. Now the path of return. Well, you know, it's hard to know what color to put this in. You can justify a number of them. But there is a fusion going on, and not a differentiation through which a great unity expresses. It's an increasing simplification and fusion through which that great unity that we call life expresses. So on the path of return, renunciation is the rule, in contradistinction to the earlier method. What was the earlier method? Diversification and division. Diversification. Okay. The indwelling life renounces the forms, and this is the Buddha way. You know, he taught us this detachment, and this detachment is at first involved very much with the second ray. The type of detachment required is related to the second ray. And then the use of intelligence, which has linked these two pairs of opposites, spirit and matter, consciousness and form. Here, consciousness seems to be associated with spirit. The forms built of matter by the aid of the intelligence are one after another repudiated by the aid of the same intelligence or reasoning faculty transmuted into wisdom. So intelligence helps with detachment. And maybe we find ourselves reasoning about this as as students of the esoteric way, we realize the importance of detachment. And our intelligence helps us achieve this. So we simplify, we build the many back into the one, and the method for so doing and for detaching ourselves, the method, the intelligent method of detaching ourselves from that which we have in a way become, is provided by the intelligence. The forms go, but the life remains, and this would be the final result of the application of the first ray. Let's just say the ray most associated with life. The colors, yes, they are not necessarily relinquished. Not so much relinquished as absorbed, reabsorbed. And that's an interesting and important point. The colors are gradually reabsorbed. So we do not involve ourselves with these lesser veils upon virtues. We combine virtues. And I think I want to somehow express that. No wonder I couldn't see anything there. It's just too dark. So we begin to recombine differentiated virtues. You know, when you have a great leader or a great teacher, all of these are amalgamized, they are all fused. The many virtues are fused, and that fusion is adequate to produce on demand any singular virtue. The fusion of virtues is adequate on demand to produce any particular needed virtue. So the colors are gradually reabsorbed, but the divine virtues persist, stable now and enduringly of use by reason of experience. Not potential are these divine attributes, but developed into powers for use. So the colors have served their purpose, and through their use has come the stabilization of the virtues that they represent, or through which the colors through which these virtues can be contacted. And here is something really important. But the divine virtues persist, stable now, and enduringly, ongoingly of use by reason of the experience. So where do we find ourselves? Well, we're pretty much on the path of return, are we not? At least within the context of our solar system, our planet and solar system. Is our entire universe more on the path of outgoing and manifestation and diversification than it is generally on the path of return? That's a big question to answer. But certainly the human being, such as we are at this time on this planet, and in a condition of having rounded the turn and made certain choices, we are on the path of return, at least with respect to our planet and solar system. Inherent faculty has become active characteristics carried to the nth power. The veils are discarded one by one. The sheaths are dropped and superseded. The vehicles are dispensed with, and the forms are no longer required, but the life ever remains and returns to its parent ray. Now, we've been told that that parent ray pretty much is the indigo ray. When dealing, I think, with our planet at this stage of its soul development, but also with our solar system as a whole. Inherent faculty has become active characteristics carried to the nth power, whatever n may be. And we are, left with the result of the manifestation and the vehicles by which manifestation became possible, namely the colors, the tones, the veils, the forms, whatever brought those inherent virtues to us, those means are retracted. But the result remains. High virtue has been transferred to the lower realms because the forms, the colors, the tones, the mantrams, whatever, have been utilized properly. The veils are discarded one by one. First the lower colors or the subsidiary colors, and then maybe secondary colors until we're left with the great primary. And who knows, maybe even that is somehow discarded at a certain point. The veils are discarded one by one, the sheaths are dropped and superseded, the vehicles are dispensed with. Well, let's say that the kind of physical body we have now is certainly not necessary to a master except in the kind of service that he proposes to bring forward. The vehicles are dispensed with, and the forms are no longer required. But the life ever remains and returns to its parent ray. It is resolved back into its primary, plus activity and expression, plus experience and the ability to manifest, plus all that constitutes the difference between the ignorant savage and the solar logos. You know, we don't exactly have politically correct statements here, but we have truthful statements. So something has gone forth, something has bestowed upon the lower worlds that which could only be accessed from the higher worlds, and something returns. The pluses, plus activity and expression, plus experience and the ability to manifest, you know, technique, skill in action, plus all that constitutes the difference between the ignorant savage and the solar logos. What a span. So we have technique. Added, that which has gone forth into manifestation. This has been consummated by the utilization of many forms, by the life, the intelligence, constituting the means whereby that life employed those forms as a mode of learning. So again, this triplicity, right? Of life, intelligence, and form. Many forms. Can you imagine the number of forms that we, the inner being, have worked through over millions of years in this particular earth involvement and manifestation as monads, whether amalgamated and aggregated with others or separated, apparently. We've been through perhaps many experiences before even reaching the earth. How many forms we have used. Now, one of the great abilities is the ability to distinguish oneself from the forms one is using. And at first, that is not easy to accomplish. So all of this consummated by the utilization of many forms, by the life, the intelligence. Now this is, you know, a synthetic statement. He does offer these, takes things apart and puts them together. This has been consummated by the utilization of many forms, by the life, the intelligence constituting the means whereby that life employed those forms as a mode of learning. Having manifested as an aspect of this primary ray, you know, let's call it the indigo ray, a cosmic ray, having through many incarnations differentiated that ray into its many component parts, and we would say including all colors, having veiled himself under all the colors that compose a ray, and presumably and under all tones, the reincarnating jiva takes the path of return, and from the 7 becomes the 3, and from the 3 again becomes the 1. So we're on our way towards this for the infiniteth time. That's kind of contradictory. There really is no infiniteth time, but the idea is you can't be definite about the number. How often we have done this. That is the kind of thought that blows the circuit of the mind. It's, if one sits down with it, it's quite inconceivable. When the man does this consciously, when he willingly and with full comprehension of what he has to do, endeavors to set the indwelling life free from the veils that hide, including later the volatile essence, the very internal nature of the monad, and from the sheaths that imprison, he discovers that the method whereby this is accomplished is by the subjective life of occult meditation and the objective life of service. In service, over and over again, he represents or expresses the values, the liberative values of occult meditation. Even in those, and maybe especially in those climactic moments of human development when we are on the verge of liberation and achieve liberation. That is, we, the essential life, the monad. In service is renunciation, and under the occult law, therefore, in service, the subjective finds liberation and is set free from objective manifestation. Think this out, for it has much hidden under the veil of words. Well, let's indicate this. So, a climactic decay is offering below a summary, a climax, an end to a great process of development. So at first it's all unconscious, but gradually we do this with full comprehension and liberate ourselves from color after color, from sheath after sheath, from tone after tone, even from an imprisoning word. Certain mantras hold us in incarnation. He tells us the AUM is one. So always occult meditation is the method of doing this. It's so much more than is presently fathomed by the people that are just getting into meditation a little bit and learning about it a little bit and thinking that maybe what they know is everything to be known. Occult meditation is the way. So perhaps we can, in reading this book, gain a deep respect for what occult meditation can accomplish. That would be of great value. It's certainly possible to read the book and forget everything one has read, just about everything. As he said, I've given you more than you can ever absorb. But okay, with steady application and careful reading, it will sink in and it will become part of our orientation towards the methods which lead to reality, to the apprehension of reality. The occult student, therefore, from the standpoint of color, has two things to do in meditation. We have been given a lot to do, have we not? But okay. There's no sense trying to simplify everything when, in fact, it is detailed and complex, or at least we cannot ignore the details which give us the method that we must pursue. So the student of occultism has, from the standpoint of color, two things to do: to discover his three major colors as manifested in the personality, the ego, and the monad, and to resolve then the lower quaternary into the three. The first stage of which is consciously to withdraw into the ego and so atrophy, there it's being used as a verb, the lower self. The student begins by eliminating the colors that are not desirable, killing out all low or coarse vibration, and eventually so refining his vehicles that the three major colors of which he is the expression shine out with perfect clarity, and not the subsidiary of the personality, and also of the ego, and also of the monad. So this is what the student must do. And we must be aware whether or not we are on the path of doing it. That is so important. We cannot blunder on through. We have to be well aware that we are following a well-sanctioned method provided for us by the inner teachers. So first, to discover, the three major colors, and sometimes maybe even to wear them, test them out and see if our association with them brings about any clearer sense of our identity. So the first mode is to discover, and the second mode is to resolve. Okay. And this is with respect to color. Discover the three major colors. Pause for a minute and see whether you are aware of those three major colors in your own case. And what form you would put them in, maybe sometimes concentric circles with the monadic color in the center, and the egoic color next in the next circle, and the personality color in general in the next circle. And maybe in the center of all of it, there might be tiny little dot, where possible, indicating one of the three absolutely major monadic rays, the Father, the Son, the Holy Ghost, or let's say the red, indigo, or green. And you kind of wonder, instead of the green on the monadic plane, whether you would find the yellow, as DK seems to tell us, I think in Esoteric Psychology, Volume 1, and also, again, in a little different way, in a treatise on white magic. I'm thinking about around page 111. He talks about friendships and people associating with each other on the basis of similarity of rays. So this would, if he can discover the three major colors, and he can resolve the lower colors into the higher so that a triangle shines forth. Eventually, a triangle shines forth no matter what the other colors may be. And even if our major colors have some quite, secondaries, subsidiaries, the three stand forth. But eventually, there's going to be one out of the three that is the dominant. And that seems to come finally from the logoic plane. Okay, and all of this leads him up to the third initiation. And after that, he seeks to resolve the three into the one until he has withdrawn all his consciousness from the lower vehicles into the monadic sheath. And this suggests the monadic plane and not yet the logoic plane. Which I think will be the final color, the most truly cosmic color. So, he's packed a lot in a few short sentences, and it just depends on our intuition and our sense of ramification. What are these indications touching out there or in there? How much we will extract from the few very pithy sentences he offers. So after the third degree leads to the triad. The third degree leads to considering the spiritual triad as a triplicity, but the fourth degree brings us to the resolving monadic color. And then, finally, we're going to the seventh degree. Leads us to the color of the major. Whoop. Something happened here. Of the seventh degree leads us to the color of the major monadic ray. Now the Christ is experiencing this, and of course for him there must be a very thorough second ray, I would say both minor and major, it seems, because even when he was a fifth degree initiate, he was expressing the great love wisdom, and that would be involving his minor monadic ray. And as a sixth degree initiate, expressing the same. And now he's begun the path of the seventh degree, and he will be on the ray path at first, path number 5. So this path number 5, I think he will experience as a great cosmic ray of love wisdom. I suspect this, but of course, to confirm these things, certainly beyond me, and I think beyond many of us. It was not my intention, as you erroneously suppose, I guess he's reading their mind, to give you information as to the effect of colors playing on the bodies in meditation. Well, maybe, people are always interested in making changes and doing so in a quite immediate manner. I have sought only to give you some idea of color as a veil that must eventually be set aside. Okay. I keep on going back to the gray, don't I? But color as a veil. This is the DK's major impartation with respect to color is to conceive it as a veil. Well, he's certainly done that. And he's gone more deeply into it than the usual method of try this color on yourself or this person and see what happens. I think that would not be as advanced as what he's given us. Under the heading of, quote, the future use of color, I may touch upon that which interests you, but to understand the fundamentals is far better than to have formulas for experimenting given to you. Yeah, we're so, they joke about healers that they just can't wait to get their hands on you, In other words, premature action. This is the problem in so much of occultism. We may be guilty of premature action, flying into action before we really understand the fundamentals. And that would be a considerable mistake. Now, there's more. And I think I will deal with that more right now. This is September 10th, okay. And then comes the new subject. We will today scarcely do more than touch upon our second point, which is the application of color for healing purposes. The reason for this brevity being that the subject, in order to be handled correctly and therefore safely, should be dealt with at length, and the old adage will consequently prove true in this connection that a little knowledge is a dangerous thing. Of course, I've sometimes said to myself, well, all knowledge is a little knowledge, so knowledge is a dangerous thing. Unless the matter of healing with color is dealt with in correct fashion, and with technical knowledge and at length, the results achieved might prove more disastrous than beneficent. Well, maybe we don't believe that. Maybe we are still under the impression that color is a pretty innocuous way of approaching the healing arts. But DK is telling us, okay, in this too, we must watch our step. I don't think he uses the word disastrous lightly. The subject will later be fully elucidated if the future brings that which is intended. Later, I suppose, as the Aquarian age approaches, if the future brings that which is intended. Hopefully it will, and in the meantime, I can, for your information, outline certain features of this work, point out certain conditions incident to success, and foretell for you somewhat the trend the matter will probably take. Even what must be obvious here is that even the masters do not know the choices humanity will make. Even the masters, with all that they know. So the emergence of the word, probably fits. And, he qualifies somewhat and probably. I guess after a lifetime in occultism, well, not a lifetime, many lifetimes in occultism, DK has learned, as all wise teachers must learn, that discretion in the impartation of information is the better part of valor. One would wish, perhaps, to excite interest and application immediately, but that which would be imparted would be overwhelming, misapplied, probably very destructive, given humanity's attitude at this moment, and its lack of depth and patience and depth. So the slower method seems the better method. It almost seems like in early days there was a great hope that giving humanity tremendous powers would result in their more rapid elevation. But in fact, it turned out to be otherwise, and those powers were used for selfish advantage and eventually in a climaxing war in the Atlantean period. So we'll just go along with the steady method. We really have no choice. It's been 100 years since this is written, and not, when you look at what continued to be written under Alice Bailey, this is the book where more about color is given than in any other book. So the theme was not really developed in depth and at length, as he says it must be, but maybe in the Aquarian age, it will be. So I'm going to just call it at this point. Okay, so I've taken our marker down to the point where we will begin again. We've just covered about 6 pages, and we've been talking about color and the environment. And, you know, at every occasion, DK pulls back from giving us the fuller kind of revelation we might hope for or expect. But by now, maybe we no longer expect it because he has to be, you know, so very cautious. We will begin with program 49. And, you know, after this kind of detailed study, it's as if the book must be read again and again. This is the case with quite a number of the books, maybe all of them by the Tibetan per se, and even some of those by Alice Bailey, such as From Intellect to Intuition, which gives such a good accounting of the different methods of meditation, something not easily absorbed at first reading. So now we have a little bit more about the application of color in healing. And it's not okay. Okay. Well, from 242 to about 249, that's where we'll go next time. And maybe this evening I'll have a chance to perhaps continue. Meanwhile, I know there's so much going on in the world now, and we have to be practical about dealing with it in an esoteric manner as members of the new group of world servers, and also exoterically where we have the opportunity to do so. But meanwhile, building up our reservoir of knowledge we are preparing for the day when real esoteric methods will be put into our hands, because there will be a need for workers, and because we will have proven ourselves as worthy of that kind of reception. So, the careful study of the books, he advises us always read my words more carefully. Read more carefully, which is what, in a way, we're trying to do here. And the following out of the various methods of meditation that DK has given, admittedly, for the modern student after 1948, 49, he was not assigning specific meditations for specific people. So much time has passed in which that type of exoteric contact with the Tibetan has been in abeyance. But before long, again, it will be possible to receive from him directly the personal meditations. Of course, the group meditations are more important, really, even though we might think the personal meditations are. Certainly, at first they may seem more interesting to us, but a balance between the two is required, so that we continue to refine ourselves personally, individually, but at the same time improve our group relations and our group meditative abilities, which at length can achieve a lot more. Okay, friends, so that'll be it for the moment. And I know it probably takes a while to listen to these. And if you find that they are helpful to you, certainly even simply reading the Tibetan's words and rereading them will be helpful. The Lucis Trust, of course, if you want to just go straight through the book with no commentary, it has the way of listening. They were originally meant to be aids to the blind. But if you really think about it, we're all blind. We're all blind about these deeper matters. So even aids to the sighted blind exist. And here what I've done is follow out some of the associations and ramifications which you may find of interest or of value. So, lots of love, many blessings to everybody, and let us persist in utilizing this great gift which the Tibetan has imparted with the permission of Master Kutumi and the Christ and even Sanat Kumara. It's an extraordinary gift, and I just know we don't appreciate yet its extraordinary nature. But we will. So I'll try to come back a little later this evening and see if I can do a bit more, and if not, then on the first possible occasion. Okay, farewell and all the best to you. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.